Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you here to the morning of the CUUC, the Canadian Ultimate University Championships. We are watching the first round of the Friday regionals as blazing like a morning dawn. Sherbrooke Vel Aor, the green and gold, looking to strike early against York Pride. And that is a magnificent huck going all the way down the pitch, gently resting in the hands of Philip Galland. A dream start and a dream day we have here for you. It is my pleasure to be Lorcan Murray, and I'm joined by the inimitable Rebecca Thompson. How are you feeling, Rebecca?
Feeling fantastic, and what a good job there to recognize that the player there on Sherbrooke had managed to split the deep defense on that zone as well and get himself open in the back corner. Good job towing the line there as well to get the point.
Galland collecting the opening score for his team, a rookie, one of multiple rookies on this team. 9 players for Sherbrooke joining the team 6 weeks ago at the start of the semester. A little bit of acclimatation for the people at home. The wind is moving briskly from left to right. It is very much an upwind downwind game. You saw Sherbrooke starting off on offense from the left hand side with a downwind hold. Now we will see York go out there and try to do the same.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the Canadian University Series as well, it is a really short season. So for those rookies to come in and already have such a big role on the team is such an impressive feat, only 6 weeks into their school year right now.
It's something that York have had to think about as well. They lost a lot of players. 4 of their main players, all 4 of their captains, graduated out of the system last year. One of them staying on as a coach in the form of Michael CUUC. So now we will see York with the wind at their backs, hoping to fill their sails, picking up the disc. Sherbrooke going with a match defense. A little bit unusual in this condition. There's the immediate huck downfield, but it never really got the height. And it falls limply at the feet of Zach Young.
Yeah, Turcotte there just trying to keep that one low with this wind, I think, trying not to let it float up so the defense wouldn't have time to catch up, but it didn't work out for him on that one as it dropped to the ground.
So now Sherbrooke with their first look on the defensive end, trying to go into that wind. It's going to be difficult, a big arcing bladey throw. But that is what Quebec teams do so well, working hard, securing the discs. Justin Chung with the disc, captain. Moving it along, Sherbrooke gradually. The dump resets a little bit of Macarena, but able to corral the disc. Eventually, Dupont-Greton, and he moves it back into the middle of the pitch. Standing, directing traffic. Thibault, one of the main handlers of this side, swings it out wide. Nadeau looking for options. It's all happening immediately in front of him. The tyranny of the conditions starting to really inflict themselves on the liberating movement of the downfield Sherbrooke cutters. And they go for another big arcing blade, and it just about falls in. A miraculous save! It looked like it was hitting the dirt, but Jonathan Dussault had other ideas, and now he stands staring into it. A short break, well taken in, although there seems to be a call.
Yeah, call a while before the throw was actually made there, so it'll be interesting to see how this affects the play. Possibly a pick called, I think, trying to get around that upline cut there.
And this could be huge. Right on the doorstep. Oh, and there's been a turnover.
So it looks like a stall down call there. Well done there from Turcotte to make sure that the player didn't have any options early on.
Very, very good. Panic defenses now probably get another look at the downwind offense. Reluctant to give up so early an advantage to the Vel Aor as they go for another launching deep shot. This one's got a lot more float and a lot more time, but still falls just short, clattering at the feet of the intended receiver, Fong.
That's really the downside of the field as well, where the low side of the field, as we often say in the wind pushing the disc down in that corner. So you really have to put a lot of love and a lot of extra float on that disc if you're going to shoot to that side of the field.
So now Carl Thibault finds himself trapped in that corner and forced to just chuck a huge one deep, looking for Nadeau. But a miraculously athletic D seems to have taken a little bit extra out of Adam Trucot. Slow to get up.
Gives a nice thumbs up there to his teammates as well. Let everyone know he's okay. Big player, a lot of height on him as well. Easily getting to that one.
Captain for this team leading from the front. And spiritually again, you can see him dominating the offense, getting it back. Surveying the scene in no particular rush. Although slowly, Sherbrooke were able to clamp down on them. Eventually gets it off to Chung. Swings it around, but that one just a little bit too high for the intended receiver, and it bounced out of the hands of Jacob Edward Schell.
Yeah, Edward Shell just a little bit bobbled up of his hands there and gives Sherbrooke another opportunity to get a break.
So Thibault to Nadeau. A connection I imagine we're going to see a lot of times in this game. One of the few experienced couplets on the Sherbrooke side. As Thibault again plays it out. Receives the disc. Trying to guide his team upwind. Goes with a huge arcing backhand, but it blades a bit too short. Bounces out of the defender's hands. But Fong luckily gets away with that one.
Yeah, Fong, lucky. You always want to catch your Ds, especially in these kinds of conditions. You don't know how the disc is going to sit up in the wind there. So definitely lucky that Sherbooke wasn't able to make a second play on that one.
That is something that we've seen a lot of in the commentary booth. You have to catch your Ds. In this conditions as well. Going upwind, how many games have turned because one person just couldn't quite clasp their cuticles around that disc. So now we see Pride going back down, trying to roar into life as they still search for that opening score. Moving it comfortably, calmly, Kim. But unfortunately, that one just comes out of his hands. No conversation about it. Just a little bit of dismay.
Yeah, just shot behind the upline cut there for his teammate.
Thibault plays that one comfortably into the middle. Ibache looks, sends it again. This is fantastic use of the open side. They are able to work hard. A hallmark of Quebec teams, a beautiful leading pass, and now they're on the front corner looking to get that break. The first blood of the game truly goes to the Quebec side.
And well earned there from them as well. They grinded that point out, always looking to have a teammate there for the second attempt on some of those shaky throws as well, getting themselves stuck in some corners there with the wind. They were able to work themselves out of that, so I think a well-deserved break point here for Sherbrooke.
Now for me, watching the Pride defense following their turn was concerning. All of those cuts were open side under, and that's all you can really get off in these conditions when you have the rookie heavy lines the Sherbrooke are going to have to rotate in this game. Do you think there could be a defensive adjustment Pride would be able to make to try and avoid that happening in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they were quite slow to transition on that one as well, not really helping their teammates find the open person and adjusting to where the force was as well in that point. So they're definitely going to need to get a little bit more communication going between their team when those turnovers do happen, not worrying so much about the mistake was made, but worrying about getting themselves back on defense and ready to go.
Well, for now, they will have to focus on the offense. York staring into that wind. Sherbrooke sitting comfortably. 2 points up, a dream start to their regional qualifier as they look to book a place in the Division 1 finals happening this weekend. And here they come, Vel et al, feeling rather golden right now. As another leader of this York side, Chung, just sits there waiting on the disc. Sides against it.
And with this Friday qualifier format as well, this is a do-or-die situation for these open teams today. If you lose, you're going home to Division 2 tomorrow for the rest of the weekend, but winning, you continue to win all the way to the end, gives you that shot at making the Division 1 finals, like you said. So having this team here, Sherbrooke, able to work hard for every point, that's what's going to get them those tough wins in these conditions.
All right, Adam Turcot directing traffic in the middle of this Sherbrooke zone. An expected style of defense, but it's nice, quick popping play initially. Lots of fakes, never really trying to let them settle. Quick handler movement. I like the fact that they're not letting it stagnate, but they don't seem to be getting much penetration. And there's the turnover. Now let's see if Sherbrooke can cash it in. They got the hard upwind break. Can they get the empirically easier downwind one? Little bit of nerves now as the disc moves its way around. St. Louis plays it down the line. It's in front of the end zone. There's a beautiful backhand break. Comfortably floated out. An excellent throw from Pleur Grenon, one of their main handlers and a captain of the Sherbrooke side. And they go 3-0 up in the early morning exchange.
Pleur Grenon doing a great job throwing that flick fake in there to get the mark to move over and then easily making that backhand throw in this win too, making it look simple. A cheeky one-handed grab there from the offender. Probably want to get both hands on that in this wind as well, just to be safe. But Sherbrooke starting off really strong here and forcing York to call a timeout.
Well, while I cannot speak for their Canadian counterparts, in my experience, the French are a flashy folk. So those kind of one-handed grabs, stylish plays, something we can expect from them. Speaking before the game to the coach of York, Michael Kukushka, he said, we know the hallmarks of Quebec teams. And I thought this very fascinating. It's something I was unfamiliar with. They're going to run hard and they're going to catch bad throws. That's just something they're incredibly skilled at. Is that a common consensus on Quebec squads?
Absolutely. It's a mentality that I think all Quebec teams have managed to create for themselves over the years and to teach their rookies as well, that they don't give up on any play, they don't give up on any disc. They're always out there and ready to fight for every game.
So now we see the timeout called. The team's just trying to collect themselves. If you were York, what would you be saying? You've gone 3-0 down. Like you say, every game counts. They lose this match, they're out. The dream is dead. How do you recuperate your immediate losses?
Well, this is a classic time to call a timeout for any team who's just gone 3-0 down. You want to stop the momentum and remind your team just to focus on your own game. Focus on the things that you can control and make those little adjustments. Make that adjustment to holding the mark tighter and not getting broken, especially on that last one. We saw how easy it was for Sherbrooke to move the mark. So just changing that a little bit, keeping your transitions quick here for York as well, and focusing on their own game.
Well, let's see if they can make the adjustments the conversations had in timeout. Now, we must rely upon action. From what I've seen so far, even going downwind, York were just so much less certain of themselves. And they were basically the same offenses, both relying on their deep shots. But York just couldn't quite get that connection timed as well as Sherbooke were able to. So now they get another look as the disc goes high and out the far sideline. The Canadian winter ever so gently reminding us that she is on her way. As now York walking to the middle of the pitch. Who else but their captain, the boat player Adam Turcot. He's so central to everything they try to do on offense. A beautiful pass comfortably taken in by the athletic Fong as he looks down the pitch. Open side shut down initially, but the second cut comes in, using the space well, moving it between them. Zach Young, another leader of this side, floats it into the middle, waiting for it. Chung. He has a break available, decides against it. He said it gives it to the Canadian under 20. Yasmin Ulan gets it back to Young. And Young looks for Turco. It's a lovely down the line and a beautiful flick, and there's some consistency that might just see York through this game.
And that's exactly the response that York needed to get out of this timeout as well, needing to generate some better offense, and they were able to just punch it up the near sideline all the way into the end zone there. So good job from them. Way to work it up and way to come out with some momentum, a little bit more fire than we saw from them at the start of this game.
Something I really liked about their cutting on that point, as opposed to the last time they had the wind at their backs, was the spacing they were giving the open side. All of those unders were coming from far away, from behind the mark, far to its left, trying to give a lot of space, a lot of separation to make the easier throw for the handlers.
Absolutely, and Jasmine Ulalan there working tirelessly to get open up the line. Like you said, Team Canada U20 player, competed at World Junior Championships in Waterloo this summer with Team Canada women, here playing for the open team despite the fact there is a women's team for York here this weekend as well. She chose to play for this men's team. She wants to push herself for a new level to compete, and clearly holding her own here already.
And York so desperately looking for the kind of confidence Ulalan really exerts on the disc, and that's something that really stands to teams in these conditions. People who aren't afraid to look into the wind and look at closely covered players and go, I can hit that. As now York look to claw their way back into this match. Started on defense. They will get it back after half, but for now they are still 2 breaks down. Chung putting on the mark as Sherbrooke look to find their way through the zone. I always am intrigued by zones by teams who are playing upwind. Like, the deep shot is available, and are they willing to test it? Down the far sideline.
We saw them right at the very first point of the game willing to go for that shot right away, but now not opting to do that and forcing a turnover.
Trying to play it through the middle, but fantastic layout D from number 27, Shea. As there's a huge hammer into the wind. We're getting a little bit spicy on a Friday morning. That'll wake you up, and he collects it incredibly well. Truong. Now he's starting to run out of time, desperately looking for something. Gets it in the form of Zach Young on the front of the end zone, trying to make this game competitive again. Trucot can't get it to Young. The break is decided against. He goes for the flick instead, and it's wonderfully taken in the Captain Chung, and that was all about the leadership for York.
In York now, we're seeing a different team in these last 2 points. So much confidence out on this field. Zach Young, I'm not 100% sure about that hammer decision so early in the stall count as well.
Questionable.
But it worked out for him.
It worked out. It kind of worked out for him. I mean, He really owes an awful lot to the reception. But, you know, dubious decisions, that's why you go to university.
Absolutely, putting a little bit of fire out on the line, and sometimes even though those plays aren't the best decisions, it does fire your team up when they work out. Getting a little bit excited, maybe a little bit more happy as well. They looked a bit stressed out at the start of the game, so good to see them looking a bit more relaxed and trying something like that.
That's a crucial observation. They were starting to dip, and that kind of mental strength is going to be necessary when every single game is an elimination one. That is the intensity we are playing at here on Friday in Brampton. Loving my time here in Canada so far, despite the element's best efforts to dissuade me. As now York look to finish the move. They got the downwind hold. They were able to respond immediately and impressively with an upwind break. There was only one turnover in that point as well, which I think is crucial to point out, because when Sherbrooke got theirs, there was 3 or 4 turnovers per side before they were able to punch it in.
Yeah, some good, cleaner offense, some of the cleanest offense we've seen in this game so far. Despite some of the decisions, they were able to come down, not turn it over on that one as well. And that's exactly what you want to see from these teams in these conditions, building some confidence by keeping it clean.
And that's going to be another brick. People still not quite able to work out the wind for the poles. Like you said earlier on, it's all dragging towards that far corner.
Yeah, it's mostly a downwind with a little bit of cross towards that corner. And definitely the team's taking advantage of the wind, putting on zone, going both directions like you pointed out.
Carl Thibault, always at the center, always at the start. Working together, his partner in crime, Dupont-Gratton. And right now it's all Thibault and Gratton. The wind howls as Thibault finds himself somewhat on an island, eventually gets it off to Gratton, but those are the only 2 options right now. You can see from the zone 6 Pride players in between Sherbrooke's 2 main handlers and everybody else in their team. Now they start to separate, start to try and create gaps, pierce their way through that iron curtain. Gratton again with the disc in the middle of the pitch, although there is a travel call.
And it's interesting to see how Sherbrooke is mostly relying on 2 handlers in this zone as well. They're both over on this near sideline, and they had no other options on the far side of the field. The rest of their players were all outfield for most of those last few passes there, so they're going to want to adjust that, get some more options, and maybe some more crashes into the cup to make them move as well.
Definitely more crashes, as you could see York had all 6 of their players taking away the under, only 1 person marking the deep, and daring Sherbrooke, go on, put it up. Especially when you've got a deep patroller in the form of Ryan Fong as well. Now they start to pierce through the middle. Penetrating the defense. There's a bit too much float on that one, but miraculously taken out of the sky by Thibault. There was nothing York could do but watch him take it down. Chung getting a little bit physical on the mark.
Yeah, no contest on that one. You see Chung holding up, signaling that the count will be coming back in on 1.
A little bit of casual violation. Nobody seems to mind. The zone is held. Thibault, now he is somewhat on an island. No one coming immediately, but then Gratton. Whenever things look their most desperate, he shows up. Now Thibault and Gratton working so hard. 2 men taking apart a zone and bringing it all the way into the wind. Phenomenal composure shown by the Quebec side.
Yeah, and like you said, they're really playing 2v2 for the majority of that point. Sherbooke relying on those 2 main handlers to get the job done. It pays off for them on this one, but I gotta say, I'm not sure how sustainable that is for the entirety of this game.
I remember when I was first being taught how to play against zones, I was told there was 2 basic ways to beat that kind of zone. 2 handlers or 4 handlers. And I've always thought, how good do the 2 handlers have to be to take the zone apart themselves in those conditions? Maybe York could adjust it somewhat and try and put a dedicated defender on either Gratton or Thibault. Twice Thibault was at what stall had to be at least 8 or 9. Things were starting to get desperate. Nobody else on Sherbrooke was really making a move that was in any way viable, but Gratton still somehow got himself that space. And Thibault was able to find him. Twice it looked like it was all done, and that form showed up again to save them.
Yeah.
Can he do it for the rest of the game?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they can do that, and York as well, how they can adjust to this game and what the Sherbrooke offense is trying to do. If I was York at this point, I would think about putting a taxi on Thibault, keep your zone, but just put a man-on-man defense on Thibault to take him out of the game.
Okay, so here's some lessons in colloquialisms. Is taxi the term in Canada?
Taxi or assassin? Assassin
is the one I would be more familiar with. A dedicated player in a zone just taking out the main handler. And that is very much what Thibault has proven himself to be so far for Sherbrooke. As now York, despite their best efforts on the defensive end, now have to go into the wind one more time. They were not able to cash in their hard work and level the game up. They're 4-2 down. And an unenviable position, one has to say, for York as they look into the wind and try to find their way back up. Nguyen with the disc. Just pops it back, ever so slightly escapes the interests of the defense. Pan. He has Lam. He has Nguyen, goes back to Nguyen, but always moving backwards as the cup ever so slightly constricts upon them. And there it is. He was running out of options. No one was really giving him an easy throw. And nobody was pulling apart the cup. As now Sherbrooke look to re-establish their 3-point lead. And they do so magnificently and immediately. Thibault there with the assist, a fantastic one. I mean, who else is going to pick up that disc and throw it? And Philippe Galland able to get free.
Yeah, not at all surprised to see Thibault on the end of that one. And I'm impressed with the ability there of Sherbooke to stay so patient in picking up that disc close to the end zone line. A lot of teams you see come out and they get so excited 10 yards out, picking it up quickly and forcing a decision. Thibault allowing his team there to set up their end zone stack, and they executed it perfectly.
With such a high turnover from both of these teams following the end of last season, it was always going to be a matter of whose rookies were able to step up and fill in those gaps on their respective squads' lines. And it has to be said right now, Philippe Galland is doing exactly that for Sherbrooke. He has 2 goals to his name. A beautiful deep cut in that time. Both times were initiation cuts to the end zone. Aggressive and hungry. Exactly what you want to see from your young players. That kind of fearlessness will serve him well as he develops going forward.
So a game of runs here so far as well. Sherbrooke going up 3-0, York coming back with 2 points of their own, and now extending it again here, up 5-2. There's an hour left in this game, so plenty of time for York to figure it out, but they're going to want to answer back quickly. Going down here by more than 3 points, it's going to be quite hard, I think, for them to get it back when Sherbrooke will be comfortable to trade, especially in this wind.
That has to be taken into account. How many more upwinds can they give up? As now they look to strike down into the pitch. That's Young once more. A huge shot all the way down to the end zone. Underneath it is Fong. And the resident athlete is momentarily called in, but the observers rule. And wasn't that convenient? Another new experience for me. USAU rules. Observers immediately being able to call on in and outs.
Yeah, and it looks a bit confusing at the back of that field here as well. The painted lines are about a yard closer or inside the soccer lines that are existing on the field. So it's the first white line that you see and not the second one. So players have to be extra aware at the back of that end zone.
I was about to, I suppose, admonish the Sherbrooke offense for steading up in a 2-5 stack despite the fact that they're on a zone, but then they split it beautifully, although that one bops out of the hands of the intended receiver. And we see Trucot with another look for Pride. And it's a nice little inside to Young, one of his favorite initiation cutters. Young has a lot of throws at his disposal as well, and the high release backhand is a soft one. Trucot for the score.
York answering the way that they needed to right away, and Zach Yannon, just an absolute dominant force on this team right now. We've seen him involved in most of the points that York has been able to get in this game, easily breaking the mark with a little lefty high release there, and he did a good job to put it up nice and high with the wind dropping it down quickly as well.
You need a lot of spin on a disc for it to be able to resist the wind, as slowly the cold starts to affect my vocal cords and we stumble over each other. I was very intrigued by the cut I saw from the front of the stack, Ula Lan. And you know, when she was playing for the Canadian under 20 side, you know, when she normally plays in the women's division, those dukes have to be taken seriously because she's so quick. If you're not with her every step of the way, you won't be with her for any of the steps of the way. But here, it seems the kind of physicality she's marking up against, the people are saying, well, look, I'm going to let you fake that way, and if you do get that step in me, I'll back myself to keep up with it. And she's still the same duke, but nobody's biting on it, and it's so much more difficult for her to get free. So if she can find a way around that, because right now they haven't really been able to get her into the game, and her skills with the disc in hand will be invaluable to them as this wears on.
I have to agree with that. We just saw Ulalan there and Coach Kukuska talking on the sideline, maybe thinking about some adjustments that they can make to get her more involved and use the skills she has to help them work their way back into this one.
There's a high floaty pull, gently cascades backwards into the York half. And once again, they have to put on a zone. Thibault not picking up the disc. That was a nice change of pace. St. Louis instead, and immediately throws it deep to who else but Philippe Garin. And that man is collecting himself quite a repertoire of goals.
Yeah, Sherbrooke taking the advantage so quickly. The way that they set up, they keep changing their offense here in the zone as well. We see previously they'd set up in that 5-person stack upfield. This time they did have 4 handlers back, but immediately splitting the deep defense, and York unable to pick up on that opportunity there, didn't notice what was happening, and Sherbrooke takes advantage.
I think you touched on something that's crucial to their style of zone offense. Like you said, when they set up in the 2-5, and I was perplexed by it until they started cutting, and it was a sequential cutting clearly being done to try and pull apart the zone. It was the same thing they did there. 4 handlers back, wind at our back, so we need a bit more space downfield. And Garand is so good at being that first cut. Another pick up the disc and throw it to Garand for a score situation. There's now York. Assess their options. Look for another offensive hold. 6-3 down.
Yeah, they're definitely going to want to get this one in, keep the downwind point on their side, like you said before, not give up too many more upwind points here. Definitely before Sherbrooke can reach half of course being at 8 points. So they're going to want to really get this one in now and try to work it themselves upwind.
The roll stopped by Shea as he continues downfield, momentarily unmarked, but decides not to take advantage. Trucot pulls apart the defense, getting Gratin out of position, gets it back to Chung instead and receives it again, middle of the pitch. Thinks about the deep shot for a bit too long and then sends it anyway. Soars over 2 defenders and brilliantly taken in by Zach Young. You want to talk about connections. Trucot to Zach Young leading this team right now.
And of course, I'm not surprised. Once again, Zach Young on the end of that disc. We're seeing him put up points here on all sides of the board. He's getting himself on the defensive side. He's getting turnovers. He's assisting goals and now scoring points as well. He's going to have to deliver something pretty big here upwind if they want to get themselves a break, but definitely a standout player for me so far in this game.
Now they've shown they can get the upwind break. And they've shown all they need to do it is 1 turn. But still, the disc is a difficult thing to get off of Sherbrooke when they're moving downfield. I would almost be tempted to just bait them into one of those deep shots and try and hide a nippy defender. Because you know that first look is always going to be someone making an aggressive cut. That's what it's been every time. They've managed to shut it down once or twice. They've also managed to have Grand score on them immediately 3 times. As now Edward Shell gets ready to pull it. And the pulls going into the wind have been less than impressive so far. And I think maybe someone go for a rolling pull. When you're starting to expose the underside of the disc, you're really trying to get it floating up there, you're just going to wind up eating your own words.
Yeah, especially with York here, they've been setting up their zone going both directions. So if they can put up a rolling pull here and actually set up their zone, trapping Sherbrooke on the sideline, that could have a much better advantage for them.
Well, there we see Shell's low pull actually getting a little bit close to the sideline. There's a lot of big gaps in that cup. Nice faking, composed work. Lambert sends it back. And that's the form of St. Louis. St. Louis just about pops that over the top. It's cheeky, but he gets away with it. And now Dussault gets it to Lambert. Lambert, now they're trapped on the sideline. How much pressure can they exert? Not quite enough as it misses the first one, but skips by. He's going to say he meant it. And who can argue? As we see Garand give it back to Lambert. Lambert again in the middle. Always trying to mess around with the cup. Never letting the defenders think that they are safe in their position. And this is wonderful back and forth play. Patience. Garand again just showing how cool and collected he is for a rookie. Now taking charge. A real young star for this team. Working fantastically alongside Plord. And now Lambert, front of the end zone. And this has been brilliant, patient offense. You can see York have switched back into match defense. He looks for the dump. St. Louis does just about everything he can to get free, and they fall at the final hurdle. Excellent transition defense by York.
Yeah, York doing a really good job to go from their zone to person defense, which we haven't seen them actually transition so far near the end zone. They've been sticking with that zone most of the time.
Snatched out of the sky as we see tearing through and taking away the disc. Garand, what can't he do for this team? Lambert go with the quick pop. And Grant sends that one across, but a bit too low, and Zach Young was always there influencing the play. You want to talk about quick transitions as well. Look at how Sherbrooke set up this zone. Instantaneously. Trucco sends that one across to the sideline. Gets it back. His throws are sharp, but can they pierce the defense? Unfortunately, cold fingers seem to lead to another drop. So that one bounces out of the hands of Tran. And Sherbooke, once again, on the end zone line. Look to call a timeout, and I got to say, I like that from Pleld.
Yeah, very smart call in these conditions. They want to make sure that they can take advantage of this right at the front of the end zone, in the middle of the field as well. An absolute perfect position here for this Quebec team.
But so far, they haven't quite been able to get that final precise throw. We've seen them turn over twice on the end zone line so far. One was a backhand caught by the wind. Another one was a flick that just went a little bit too low.
Just looks like a little debate about what the stall count actually was. Chung there thinking that he had at least one on, I think. So trying to get it in a little bit higher, but looks like they've resolved it, and we'll see what they can come out with after this little break here.
I don't know what you think about that, but I got to say, I appreciate that from Chung. You know, every second counts in front of the end zone. He goes, I don't know, I think I'm coming in at stalling 2 there, man, because I don't think you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Every second does count. You want your team to be able to set up and just play 8-7 seconds of hard defense as well, and know that that's all you have to do to get a turnover.
York have looked at their best when playing match defense. It is something that they pride themselves on. They've got a few junk looks. They have a few zones. But we'll see what they're able to do. As Sherbrooke have looked so calm. Their offense almost looking better in the more recent points when going into the wind. And if they could replicate that now that the wind's at their back, try to be a little bit less ambitious. Just keep that hard running, open side offense going. As we see picking up the disc. Sherbrooke ready to go. Plord Guénon. York seem to be setting up in a kind of clamp. But you have to watch the sneaky forms of St. Louis and Lambert on either side. Dressing them in the forms of Chung and Young, two of the smarter defenders from York. So trustworthy in that department. And the first cut doesn't work. They look for the dump immediately. St. Louis can't quite get free on the first one. Pops it in. Big layout D, but he's able to get it magnificently weighted. And fantastic stuff from Sherbrooke.
Absolutely perfect pass there, and it had to be perfect with the wind, the conditions, the tight window as well, really threading the needle to get that pass. And credit to York, set up a really efficient defense as well. Sherbrooke had to adapt and improvise in order to get that point, but they do so well, and now they're 1 point away from taking half.
Adapt, improvise, and overcome is exactly what they're able to do, facing quite an impressive end zone defensive look from York. 7-4. That was an offensive hold from Sherbrooke. They've done the hard work. They started on offense on the left-hand side of the pitch, but they were able to get the break early on. Their 3-0 lead almost looked like they were about to surrender, but an offensive upwind hold kept them in the commanding position, and ever since then they've really just been batting it back and forth. The way York have been playing lately, I expect them to get this downwind. Do you think there's any chance Sherbrooke take half?
I think there's a possibility if York continues to make some of the execution errors that we've seen on some of these points, getting the disc back on offense there to go upwind, making some key drops there to give it straight back to the Sherbrooke team. So unless they can clean it up, I think Sherbrooke would have an opportunity. However, we have seen mostly this O-line here since their timeout that they called have remained efficient and able to score those points. So in theory, all things go according to plan. Sherbrooke should not be able to get a break, and we'll see York get a hold here.
The Stars of York have already really started to establish themselves. The leaders of the side, likes of Trucco, Jung, Young. Very important, everything they're trying to do. Nguyen, another big player for them. I've been very impressed with Ryan Fong as well, more on the defensive side. His athleticism. So now York immediately centering it into the middle. Trucco, always at the forefront. Young, one of his favorite targets. Relaxed with the disc. Sends it back, waiting for it. Hunyi gets it to Young. He wanted that backhand break, but nobody really made the cut. Sends it down the line instead to Hunyi. Opportunity for defense to step through, but magnificently rescued. Now that's bravery. Chung tries to separate himself downfield, but can't quite. Young instead opts for the dump. No swing immediately available, but nice, calm cutting, and eventually they're able to get it to Shea for the score.
And Young does a good job to move his feet there. He really, you could see, wanted so badly to cut into the end zone, but recognized that his defender was in his way, wasn't going to be able to force his way through the tight gap, cuts back instead, and then created so much space for that next cut to come in as well. York doing a good job here to keep themselves involved in this game, and we're seeing Sherbrooke, I believe now, taking a timeout. They want to be able to get this half right away here. They don't want to give York an opportunity to get another point back before the halftime.
Understandable. And if you have timeouts, why not use them? Rest, recuperate, warm those fingers up. I gotta say, this has probably served York quite well as well. They've shown they can get the disc. They've shown that they can break up wind. They just need to put it all together.
So some score updates for you in the open division. The other side of the bracket has already completed a number of games. We've got Winnipeg has moved on, Ryerson has moved on, Laval and Carleton A. So the other teams unfortunately out already, but 4 teams moving on, looking to see who will get that bid.
So we will continue our coverage all day. We have this final game of this round. Another open game to bring you to determine who gets into Division 1. And then finally we'll have the game to go of the women's division as well in the afternoon. Plenty of action coming to you here all day long. I am Lorcan Murray. I am joined, thankfully, mercifully, for the people listening at home, by Rebecca Thompson.
So we will, of course, at 2:15, that game to go in the open division will be the winner of Winnipeg Ryerson versus the winner of Carleton Laval. So likely to be quite the showdown there. Be interesting to see who gets into that one. We've got some good regional representation around the board in those 2 games. And then later on, like you said, the women's game to go. We'll find out later who's come second in both of the women's pools. But a crazy day here. Weather, classic University Canadian Championships. I played in this series the last 5 years in a row, and I don't think was there a single year where it wasn't like this, if not worse.
I think that's a universal problem with university championships, because I've been to university championships in the UK and Ireland, and exclusively windy affairs. Always so windy. In places that aren't really known for wind as well, but such is life. As now, York roaring into life on the defensive end, and again they put on this zone. They have not been effective at stopping it. Lambert, so good at just being an anchor for his side. St. Louis, we have not seen too much of Thibault in these past few points, as momentarily tempting us, but Plord goes against it, and they're magnificently patient. The Vel et al. St. Louis thinks about the scooper, goes with a flippant high release backhand fake. Gotta love the cheek instead. Now that is how you throw with the wind at your back. Unfortunately misread by the intended receiver. If he'd run in a straight line, he would have got it all the way. But York able to get the D, and now they're trying to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, like you said, able to keep the nose of the disc pointed upwards so that it wouldn't be pushed down by the wind. Unfortunately misread, but I'm enjoying the versatility that Sherbrooke's offense has been able to show us, going for those deep shots, also able to dish it in and out between the cup with those give and goes.
So Trucco immediately starting off in an area affectionately known as Coffin Corner, the wind blowing into his face. He's able to center it. But Sherbrooke really trying to tighten the screws. They are in Callahan country, deep in their own end zone. Great swinging, tireless work. Shell combining with Young and Trucco, swinging it back and forth. Also involved there is Tran. Now this seems a little bit more sustainable, but they're not getting any penetration downfield. Every fake matched so well by a Sherbrooke defender, just coming in with them, crashing brilliantly. And they are running out of space into which they can retreat. Trucco A beautiful flick break to Zach Young. Normally those kinds of throws tear apart zones, so do those ones. Huge, floaty, plenty of time. You have to think maybe Shell gets there, and he does. He started that cut from behind Young, but there's the experience reading the wind, and they are starting to get up there. Chung takes a little bit of a knock. And there's a call, Plod, coming across slightly too physically.
York really needs to take advantage of that incredible play made by Edwards Shell there. Like you said, started his cut behind where the huck went up, reading it all the way. He was watching it, tracking it down, and manages to come down with it. And now York is in their best position they've been in several points to get an upwind break here.
Chung with the disc, and I love that look from Young as well, because he was sick of them passing it back and forth. He saw how close CUUC come to getting D'd, and they still weren't out of their own end zone. Strand sends it back into the middle. Chung cutting a little bit messy downfield. No real sideline being presented on either one. Always blocked off. CUUC waiting for an option, but it's Young. Can't quite get there immediately, but Chung hits him. The second look goes down the line, and it's a nice pop. And they're really leaning on their stars to get it done. It's all dump cuts. It's all up the line, and Lowerlease backhands that one just slightly too far ahead. And that has to be a little bit heartbreaking for York and the talismanic CUUC.
Yeah, disappointing to see that one 1 yard away from the end zone line, just being shot straight out of bounds. Trying to keep that one, you can see he was trying to keep it low so that the wind wouldn't take it as well, but on that one just puts it too far out the sideline, and I think an opportunity wasted there by York.
As now Lambert pops it back in the middle. There's an awful lot of float on that one, but to Sherbrooke. Guys, and unfortunately they can't take advantage of it. That one just clatters to the ground beside Galland, and this is a high-end turnover. Can York cash it in? Young goes to it. He wants to get CUUC in the middle. He does. He has Cheng. Could have gone for the backhand instead. A nice inside flick break. Showing off his technique. So much wrist snap, unaffected by the elements. Shell tries to get free in the end zone and can't. Young instead has to go back around. And I like the movement from Young, always dishing it and going. CUUC wants somebody to get to the break side. Nobody really making the move. Gets it to Chung and gets it back. Sends that one all the way across. Young goes to his knees to collect it. A beautiful sweeping flick break. But still they can't get into the end zone. Fantastic defensive coverage. And they keep poking and prodding, trying to pick their spot. And once again, it's the form of CUUC with a beautiful flick. Dropping that one, and look what it means to York. Shell losing his mind. Screaming, and that was an integral score if they want to get back into this game. 8-6 in the wind at their backs for their next defensive point.
And that point was really all about Edwards Shell, able to get that huge backhand that they pumped out of their own end zone, reels it in, they work it up the field. Like you said, wasted the first opportunity, but they were able to trap the Sherbrooke offense in their own half of the field, got the turn back, and then Edwards Shell, seeing the opportunity of the end zone offense being split, cut straight down the middle for an easy shot into the end zone. 7-6, they're right back in this one.
7-6, the opportunity to tie it up if they can get that last break back, but we have seen Sherbrooke be so consistent offensively moving into the wind. Let's see if they can replicate it one more time. I think CUUC was absolutely phenomenal on that point as well. Those flick breaks. He had one that went almost laterally across the front of the end zone, getting his team out of jail time and time again. As here comes Sherbrooke looking to finish the half.
This is a great opportunity now for York to tie this one back up with the wind at their side. We'll see if they can take advantage of this. We see Thibault back out on the field now for Sherbrooke. Maybe just taking a couple points off there to rest a little bit. With the do-or-die situation, you are going to end up playing your top players a lot throughout the course of the day to qualify. So I think maybe thinking that they were a little bit more comfortable than they were, and now we see him back on the field needing to get the point here for the green.
Well, with the wind at their backs and a momentary miscommunication downfield, exactly what York wanted. Chung is down there. Lambert with the disc in the middle of the pitch, and here comes that cup one more time. Thibault. We've seen Thibault just take his time, pick it apart. Never really feeling too rushed. None of these players do. Plaud, another man very capable. Very difficult to flap. Gets it to Thibault, directly in front of him. And they're just waiting. He uses lengthy arms to reach around the mark and throw the backhand. The snap of his wrist, all he needed to get it to Lambert. And they just do not look concerned. They don't look pressured. They know how to get free, and they know someone will get free in the 10 seconds. They feel comfortable giving themselves 5 or 6 to look for penetration downfield until eventually somebody comes and get it, but Thibault misread that dump pass, jumped when he should have crouched.
Very uncharacteristic mistake there from Thibault.
So now with a chance to tie it all up, Trucot gets it into the middle. And York knocking on heaven's door, but throwing it slightly out of the outstretched hands of Young. An unfortunate mistake from Hyun.
See if they can trap the Variol in this corner down here. A great opportunity for York to get this downwind hold and tie it up.
So the wind really starting to blow. Sherbrooke with no real options. Thibault tries to crash the cup, literally at one point bashing his way through 2 of them. Blood calling for his cutters. Somebody has to move towards me. Somebody has to be ready for that. Lambert gets the dump off. Dupont, the middle of the pitch, and it's all Thibault, Dupont, Lambert, and Claude. None of the cutters downfield ever really able to get themselves involved. And not really pulling apart the York zone in the ways that they were on previous points. That cup staying rather motionless. And here the pressure starts to build. He's forced to try and run his way through it, and Young dismissively, like he felt disrespected, and there's a beautiful throw. Claude comes in and he forces Trucot to try and take it early. Brilliant defensive pressure.
Such a casual D there from Young as well, just tapping it to the ground, showing here a little bit of confidence as well that York feels they have the ability to trap Sherbooke down here with their zone, with the wind. A little bit of rain now picking up here too, so the disc going to be a little bit wet, and Thibault there making a good call, calling a timeout. He wants to settle his team down here, try and work this one upwind.
And here we see the elements really start to exert their influence. The wind has been a factor from the start. Now the rain adds its own say. As if cold hands weren't difficult enough, now you're trying to grab wet discs. I swear I can see blue skies off in the distance, but they have no interest in coming over here to us. As we frantically rearrange ourselves. York have shown an awful lot of heart in this game. To go 3-0 down, almost looked like their heads were starting to drop, but they responded brilliantly. And again, when it looked like the half might just slip away from them, they were able to strike, get another upwind break, close that gap, and now, provided they can continue to put pressure onto Sherbrooke, force them into some of those lackadaisical throws that they got the 2 turns off previously, and then cash it in, they could tie this game back up. Twice it's looked like it was slipping away from them.
See how they can answer back here again. You're right, looked like it was slipping away from them more than once, and now fully involved again in the conversation here. Sherbooke needs to try to find a way to gain a little bit more confidence. Looked like they were getting a little bit too comfortable, almost sitting players like Thibault for a couple points in a row, assuming maybe that they had a little bit more room than they did, but really a 3-point lead is one of the most dangerous points lead to have in Ultimate. Makes you feel awfully comfortable in a false sense there.
So now York still trying to put that pressure on. Claude gets it to Thibault on the sideline, who goes for the huge hook. But there's Fong and absolutely nobody else. Again, we see the inexperience of the downfield cutters for Sherbooke costing them as Turcotte gets it across. Well taken in. Ian, no one really getting free from him quickly. And there's a huge hammer from Young. He loves those kinds of throws, but it just slips through Fong's hands, and that's what makes him dangerous.
I love that look from Young. That one to a wide open Fong in the end zone. Had a good amount of float and spin on it in the wind as well, but just Fong unable to get his body behind it, and so it slipped through his hands. And now Sherbooke gifted another opportunity here. We'll see if they can take advantage.
It's Thibault stuck in that corner. Eventually has to put one up, but it's well taken down. Excellent stuff getting out of there. Ebache pops it back to Thibault. And that's something they were doing quite well earlier on when they were trying to go into the wind. Somewhat shaky looking throws over the first line of defense of that zone. Blood tries to go through the middle and just about able to get it to Ebache. But those are the kind of throws you have to rely on. Those are the kind of throws Quebec are built on in these conditions. A no-look backhand dump. I love it. And there's that flashy style coming out in Thibault's play. And now the holes are really starting to appear in York's defense. Ebache with the disc in the middle, able to get the dump off to Thibault. And I feel like they're getting these dumps off too easily. And that one was almost another matter of catch your Ds as the disc went up, but Young was able to come in and get the D. So they get another look. You have to think Trucot's thinking Huck almost immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to get it back down the far side of the field. And there you go. You called that one easily.
And Chung came back in. I thought it was a great grab, but it seems like he took quite a hit.
Yeah, it did look like the disc was actually in the hands of Chung already on that one. So it'll be interesting to see what the call is here. Hopefully he's okay, Chung staying down there on the far side of the field.
And these kinds of things can happen in these conditions. Whenever the discs float, the bodies tend to collide. You could see Chung had to readdress his cut, stop and come back under to go up and get that grab. It looked like he was fairly successful in doing it. Ebache was just running under the disc himself. So then clattered with Chung. Again, you saw them go for those hucks where you put the lip or the nose of the disc up into the air so that it isn't pushed down as quickly. Wonderful technique, but it does affect how far it can go, leading to those kinds of situations. Although now it seems to mostly just be a conversation about whether or not he got the disc.
Yeah, the Sherbrooke player there, you can see with the way he's signaling with his hands. I think he's saying that he went straight up and not into Chung, the two of them colliding more incidentally. But I gotta say, from my angle here, it did look like Chung fully had his hand on the disc, and then the Sherbrooke player made contact after the catch had been made. So in my opinion, that should be a foul call, and the disc should stay with York 2 yards from the end zone line.
Well, I'm always been a huge fan of speculation, especially from distance. And what I say is, foul! Foul! How dare he? Typical. Typical, I say. These French Canadians, they have no regard for anybody else. They only think of themselves. As the conversation continues, I did see Edwards come on the pitch momentarily. I thought maybe York were going to go for an injury substitution, but it seems he just needed a second for what is now the Canadian National Debating Championships.
Yeah, a lot of players there are definitely getting involved with what they thought they saw. At that point, definitely just need to leave it to the two people involved and to the observers here. The observers, of course, when they are asked to come in to make a ruling, that will stand as the final call. So they do have to respect whatever that ruling is. Looks like.
I gotta say, I like the use of hand signals by the observers. I believe he was calling foul. Provided he was using those hand signals, one outstretched arm and then touching the crux of it with the other. That is a foul. And I believe Edwards has come on to replace Chung.
Yeah, Edward Shell will be able to tap the ground here, actually have the disc since it was caught by Chung. So the observer's ruling that it was a foul. Disc will stay here with York a yard out of the end zone.
He has Tran and Hun right next to him. Everybody else a considerable distance from the play. Immediately sends it to Tran in the middle of the pitch. Edwards looks to complete the move, but nobody comes. Instead, they pop it back. Shea, Tran, Young. And they're starting to really look dangerous now. Trucot almost, but a fantastic layout D by Ebache. Trucot feels like maybe his ankle was caught slightly, but that was brilliant defensive effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting his hand to the disc. Some contact there as well. Hard to tell whether that occurred before or after he was able to get his hand on that disc. But Sherbooke looking fired up here. They definitely wanted to get that one back from the previous play.
Have a slight bit more conversation. I think York were a little bit limited in their offensive attempts there. You know who they want to send it to. They want to get back. If it's not in Trucot's hands, they want to get it back to him as soon as possible. And I was very excited to see Tran almost taking charge of that show. I thought maybe him and Edwards could work something. Really make Sherbrooke think about it. But the moment Trucot started attacking, you could see Abaché. It wasn't his man, but he knew that's the guy the disc is going to, so I can commit on this and really give myself for it. Just becoming a slight bit too predictable, it seems.
This has become quite a long point here as well. We've only got about 30 minutes now remaining in this game at 7-6. We've yet to reach the halfway mark here as well. So every point becoming more and more important. Looks like the ruling there, a contested foul, opting not to go to the observer, and it will come back to the hands here of Zach Young.
So, Young once again finds himself looking at 12 people in an end zone. Trucot can't get free, has to wave it off himself. Oh, but unfortunately the initial poach defense was undone as nobody followed him to the corner, and they get the score, 7-7.
Yeah, like you said there, the defense just let him go after that initial cut. They were so concerned with the very front of the stack there that he found himself wide open on the near side of the field. 7-7, next point will take half with only 30 minutes remaining. And of course, mirroring the halves here after the break, and York will get a chance to start downwind. So a great point for them here to bring it back, tying it up. No matter what happens, they'll get that downwind start, and they're back in this game. This is an exciting one here.
What they've managed to do is reset the clock. They went 3-0 down to start it. Reset the scoreboard, I suppose, even. 3-0 down to start it. 7-7 now. Like you said, if they get a break, they get an immediate chance at another one coming out at half. And if they concede, they're just right back where they started. Half an hour left in one of these two teams' college season. The lengthy, drawn-out Canadian college season. All 6 weeks. And again, I am so impressed with Sherbrooke's use of rookies and their ability to really assimilate them into their team, their ethos. There's now York talking over what kind of defense they're going to run.
So we'll see what can happen here now. Of course, the wind on the side of the team from Quebec. See if their hard work and that always willing to make the second effort here can come into effect and really grind it out to take half here.
Vel A all trying to get started, although an offside has been called, a rare offside call on what was quite a good upwind hook, all things considered.
Yeah, it looks like the offside call was made on York as well, so just stepping across that line before the pull left the hands of Edward Schell.
Unfortunate, as that one was one of the better ones that we've been able to see so far. Edwards is going to have to try and do it again, as York hoped to avoid a double fault. Do you think that'd be a little bit deflating?
Absolutely.
As now that one drifts out for a brick, unfortunate. But it gives York a chance to set themselves up, and we'll have a look at what this defense will be.
Yeah, York is definitely going to want to stay onside continuing through this game. If a second penalty would give the disc at halfway to Sherbrooke, and in this win, that is a huge advantage.
As a huge hook goes up immediately, but Lee Newbury always had the right look at it. Able to edge out Sherbrooke's defense or offensive efforts, and Pilon could only watch from a distance. So now York, can they do what Sherbrooke struggled to do and get out of this half of the pitch? Edwards tries to get the quick pop, set-ups to swing it around. Hun really starting to get a little bit stuck, but eventually gets it off to the far sideline, waiting there Truong. Pops it back. That's Tran. And again to Hunt. Can't get it across to Edwards. And again, Tran shut down immediately as well. This is a really invasive cup. Brilliantly matching the crashes. And this is the situation York were in last time when they went for the big huck. But neither Trucot nor Young are on the line right now. So who is going to be able to lead this offense? Take charge. Edwards currently working with Tran quite effectively, but there's the flick that I think Trucot would have thrown, and Tran holstered instead. So now they remain in their own end zone. Edwards goes for a big arcing one over the top. It looked beautiful from the start, but eventually just rises over Wilson Pan. The Sherbrooke look to take half. They get another go. St. Louis, a lovely inside backhand break, sweeps it across the pitch. Gingras sends it down the line to Galar. And back into the middle. And this fantastic end zone offense as they swing it across the pitch. Not letting York settle. And then they go for the pop and they take half comfortably. Incredibly well done offense. Well worked. Claude Ganon with the assist.
Sherbrooke doing a really good job to take advantage of that turnover this time, going for the short, quick passes, making it really hard for the defense there from York to set up as well. And a good job here. See them finally look a little bit more confident again on that point.
So, the scores will be 8-7. And when we come back after half, York with the disc in their hand and the wind at their backs will hope to try and rise up and overthrow the Quebec dominance of the first half. I've been Lorcan, joined by Rebecca, and we will see you in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people skiving off from work as they patiently wait for the day to end and they can enjoy what remains of their Friday. It is my pleasure to welcome you here to the second half of the first broadcast game of the final qualifiers to the Canadian Ultimate Championships. And at the end of that elongated, exponential sentence, I can introduce myself. I'm Lork and I'm joined by Rebecca Thompson. It is the second half. Sherbrooke find themselves 8-7 up after an impressive first half performance that York were able to weather to an extent. And they've been showing a bit more fight in the later exchanges as Young with the disc. And they're coming out firing quickly, working their way down the pitch. Trying to make it along. That one they almost get away with, but unfortunately it was just too far behind the intended receiver. A little bit of a misthrow by Shea. As now Thibault immediately getting things started. So frequently leading the charge to the Sherbrooke side. Ebache was throwing himself around in the first half. Instead this time goes for the nice conservative pop pass to the far sideline. And York are taking away the unders with their bodies, daring Sherbrooke to try and go for the deep shot. As there is a pick call in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, the Sherbrooke offender there suspiciously open. Wide open shot there, easy to see why there was a pick called on that play, but the disc of course remaining with the team in green.
It's now Sherbrooke. Vel, all. Thibault thinks about the deep shot, smiles, but decides against it. Is Fene, but can't quite reach him. Instead, it's another flick break, and he has been throwing those at will all day long. Beautiful play down the pitch. Just about able to hold on to it. Nadeau starting to get under pressure. Somehow gets that one off directly over the head of his defender. And Sherbrooke are just about pulling this off. Furco goes for a huge big, gets nowhere, and this for the break bounces out of two hands, and Edwards just watches it fall to the ground. That was close.
That really could have been a valuable point here to get upwind with not that much time left in the game. Able to get that break so critical right out of half here, but now York gifted the disc back, have a chance to go the full 70 yards to get their hold.
Young swings it to Edwards on the open side, and Edwards immediately looks deep. A big bounce, and that's a Mac, but they'll count it. Tran with the disc outside the end zone. They all count. Fong looks for options. He only has one in the end zone, but decides against trying to get it to Shea. Instead pops it back Trucot. Trucot gets it along to Young, who goes with a huge high release backhand. It's beautifully done and immediate to Fong. The deep defender gets high to collect it, although there seems to be a pick call. You got to give credit to Dupont on the defensive effort.
Looks like the pick did affect the play, so the disc will come back to the hands of Young here.
The immediacy with which he threw that as well. Caught it and was like, nope, I don't want this. Reckless abandon. York, like we said, trying to tie it up, and you alluded to the time. There's about 17 minutes left in regulation?
15.
15 minutes left in regulation. It was a lengthy first half, capped off by what was the longest point of the game, in which York were able to take it tie the game up 7-7. There's now Young. Still discussing.
Of course, there is no soft cap in this tournament as well. There's only a hard cap, so when that horn goes in 15 minutes, whatever the score is when that horn goes will stand. They'll finish out the point if they are currently playing a point. If it goes between points, they'll get a chance to play one more. So for whoever's down here, they're going to need to keep it within one to keep themselves involved in the game with not much time left and a foul called on that hand block.
For a moment there, I thought Thibault was like, I'm going to put that 2-point difference in right now. I'm going to hand block Trucot. And those really are the two leaders of these teams offensively. Great to see them match up, the lengthy handler against lengthy handler battle. Trucot can't get it to Young. Instead he opts to get it to Fong, who puts in the flick break, but you can see the frustration. He did not want it to come out that bladey.
Yeah, and Young there wasn't sure whether or not he should bid for that disc. You could see him shoulder check there, maybe thinking he also had a help offense behind him. Could have maybe made a play on that one, but now they've got a chance to set up their zone that has been really efficient to keep them down in this end zone.
So they swing it across the end zone line. Certainly in the last few points of the first half, and this one, Sherbrooke struggled to get out of that zone. It's really keeping them flat now, and some moving is one much smarter movement by the Cup. Not really letting too much through. Thibault goes to sit behind it, but again, we just see there are some players on the Sherbrooke side who are more than content to keep swinging it back and forth between consistently and constantly. Dupont-Gratin, Thibault instead goes for the huge shot deep, but Fang, where he's been all game long in that deep spot. He was trying to get to Dupont, but couldn't. As now Trucot wants to tie up this game. Beautiful flick break to Young, and then he completes the move to Fang. Dupont screaming across, but gets there too late.
And what a critical point here for York, tying it up 8-8 with 13 minutes remaining in this game. And I want to credit the Cup there on that point. They worked tirelessly, like you said, to move as a unit, moving more consistently across the field, and also staying so active to stop any crashes into the Cup. Saw Jasmine Ulalan on her toes the entire time, ready for any kind of movement, tracking the fakes as well as the crashes there, so that Cup really causing the pressure to be put on Thibault. He had to put that disc up. He was running out of options, and now York, this game, 8-8, time running out. This is going to be a barn burner of an end.
It's exactly what you want to wake you up on a Friday morning. And just to compare the two different Cups that we've seen York go on. Earlier on, there was a few more rookies in that position that we saw Lalan take up. On that previous point, the likes of, not to speak disparaging about him, he is still just a very young player, but Wilson Pan found himself there, and you could see him looking around at the start of the point and asking a few questions. Incredibly understandable, given how small amount of time he's been with the team. But when you're able to put someone with a bit more intelligence, someone with a bit more experience in that position, they can really help seal the gaps that Sherbrooke were getting a lot of their offensive joy from. As now, there's a timeout, and you have to imagine Simon, the coach for Sherbrooke, Simon Martin, is in that circle right now, and he's saying, we're in charge, we're in control. I mean, can you imagine, do you think there's any adjustments they need to make?
I think Sherbrooke just need to get themselves a little bit more pumped up again and to remind themselves that they were in control of this game. They have the ability to outwork this York team, and they need to get back to that. They've looked a little bit stagnant on those last couple points, not moving as freely or easily in the zone there. So they just need to remind themselves of the things that they need to do and execute them.
Something I would like to see happen is maybe Thibault gets the disc and immediately throws it to Garant. It's worked for them multiple times before. Oh no, Thibault isn't even on this point. Well, maybe St. Louis, he can send it pretty far. Or Lambert. Lambert is an excellent thrower. Basically, somebody throw it to Garant as he stares deep immediately. And I think that would work. Edwards once again looking to hurl this one into the wind. His best pull of the day was called back for an offside. And again, he keeps this one low, and I like that. Ever so slightly closer to the sideline than the brick mark, so they'll take it. Lambert picks it up immediately. And again, it's a bit more of an experienced squad making up the Cup now. Edwards always looking over his shoulder. Necessary. Almost able to get to that one, but St. Louis so good, so low. Scrapes it by and now launches it deep to absolutely nobody. So that one just kind of falls uninhibited to the ground.
Looks like that one Sherbooke was content to put it deep despite the lack of offense upfield. Happy to set their zone up. The wind is that extra help defender in these situations, so we'll see if York can get it out of here. They've had trouble before, often getting pushed back into their own end zone.
Eventually relying on some kind of miraculous flick break from Trucot to get them out of it. Something that surely Sherbrooke are aware of. The passes just getting by, and they get to the sideline fine, and Young again launches it deep. Nobody near Fang, all the time in the world to read it. And that looked very similar to the last upwind break they got. So now Fang able to get the dump off Trucot, gets it back. And it's rare you get a deep receiver who is as comfortable with the disc in their hands as Fang, just waiting on that one, patiently. Not a man you're afraid to get it in the middle of the pitch, halfway down in the wind. Which is a remarkable thing to be able to say. Chung on the sideline. Trucot tries to get free. Lambert goes around him, but excellent dump defense by the Quebec team. Momentarily, and then that one pops up, but brilliantly taken down by the form of Trucot, and they get a crucial upwind break to start off.
And this is the first lead of the game that York has had so far with 9 minutes remaining. What a time to put yourself in front, an upwind break, and now a chance to extend their lead to 2 here going downwind.
9-8, a dream start to the second half from York. The downwind hold, the upwind break. They did all the work in the latter half of the first half to drag themselves back into competition in this game, and now they are able to capitalize on it. Brilliant offensive flow all the way down the pitch. No turns into that wind from such a difficult position. The amount of work they had to put in just to get to halfway and then to still have the composure. That handler heavy movement doesn't quite work in their own end zone, but once they're able to get out of it, it becomes a much more viable offensive option.
We're seeing a lot of the same faces staying out here for York as well, with the like of Chung, Edward, Shell, Young. You see Turcot out there as well, ready to go and get themselves another break.
Speaking to Michael Kukushka before the game, he did say, these are all elimination games. This will wind up restricting itself to say 8 or 9 players as it wears on. Now that is a magnificent pull. Had to crouch down so I could see outside of our tent to see where it was going. Picked up by Thibault. He's able to get around to Dupont, although there is a call.
So it looked like the York players there thought that it hit the leg of Thibault. Thibault picked it up and threw it anyways, but now admitting that it actually did hit him in the leg. Good spirit there from Thibault. You could tell he really wanted that not to be the case, but admitting now after York called him on it, and they're going to get the disc right on the end zone line.
Turcot looking to pop it into Young. He goes a bit too much for it though. Too casual, as now Sherbrooke see their advantage and try to take it quickly. Unfortunately not quick enough. York able to set the zone. Initially just clogging up their options and now starting to find their assignments. Sherbrooke forced here to the near sideline. Hard work from Thibault to get the disc. He has Dupont on the sideline, decides against it. Pops it into the middle. And that's Pleurd. Still has Thibault. Gets it just about across, and that one is ruled as up. Garand gets it back in the middle to Thibault. As Garand makes himself free in the handler position as well. And that dump always available as York try, for my money, to push towards Sherbrooke to the wrong sideline. They're pushing them to the high sideline as opposed to the low one, which is peculiar. I don't normally see that.
Yeah, that's the side of the field that is going to allow you to have those opportunities like York has had a couple times now with Young pumping it deep and allowing it to sit up in the wind. You really want to push them to the other side, force them to have to break the cup into the wind and really put their throws in jeopardy.
1-1 wonder what York are hoping to achieve. Perhaps trying to dare Sherbrooke into sending that deep shot. Fong has been fantastic at shutting down those options when they were taken. That disc just about gets out of the hands of Pleurd. Back to Dupont, now Thibault again in the middle of the pitch. Slowly they're pushing their way. It's certainly a difficult labour, but they're working their way through it. Thibault bobbles that one momentarily, screaming for the disc on the opposite sideline. And now they get it down. Gingras, but sends that one to Galland, just too far. Now Fong wants to send the flick up the first time, can't, sends it the second time. It's huge, Chung can't read it. Although there was no real reading that one, rather illegible.
Yeah, that one, unfortunately, he just put the inside of the disc facing directly towards the wind with that big around flick put there, and the wind catching it all the way, taking it further and further away from the outstretched arms of Chung.
So now Thibault, once again, in coffin corner. Murderer's row. The Deathly Hallow itself. That low side corner. And it seems to be perhaps a call on that one, because the gaps that they're able to eventually pull that cup into are how Sherbrooke have been able to work their way up down the pitch up to this point.
And with only 4 minutes remaining, this point taking quite a bit of time here, this could be the difference in the game. Sherbrooke, if they can tie it up, will likely take us to a universe point situation. Of course, if York can get this one in, we could end up with York winning the game.
And that is the power of the hard cap. You have to stay close. For York to be coming out in the second half, 8-7 down, to score 3 points in a row to win the game. It will be an incredibly resilient effort. That's something I'm sure Sherbrooke have their own opinions on. And Thibault goes for a huge arcing one, but who else but Fong screams in. Denies Nadeau, and Nadeau has been fantastic all game long as Tran with the disc right on the end zone. They're looking for insurance. Trucot, no one immediately available. Couldn't get it to Fong. Young can't get free either. This is fantastic swarming, clamping defense by Sherbrooke. Brilliant switching initially. Now they've gotten to a little bit more rigidity, and could it be their cost? Young goes up the line. Dupont can't quite get there in time, but he wasn't in. He's right on the front. Trucot again looks for it. Tries to get right in the immediate square, and they force it a bit too hard. Excellent defense by Sherbrooke, tightening it up time and time again until eventually it was just too small a gap to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. Sherbrooke really forcing them to use those tight little gaps and doing a great job to shut the likes of Young and Turcot down there.
So Nadeau with the disc gets it to Thibault. Wouldn't mind seeing Nadeau maybe involve himself a little bit more as they send it down the line. Gingras back to Thibault, and Thibault gets that one. Looked initially like it was going the wrong way. Grant has it, and again that was just a bit too far away. They had the space, they had the time, but they lacked the composure. Maybe the rookie elements starting to shine through now.
Yeah, just looked a little off balance as he went to make that shot to the far sideline. Clearly wanted to keep it low with a lot of spin in the wind, but just put a little too much on it almost as it shot straight out of bounds.
In the words of AC/DC, perhaps a touch too much as Trucot looks to send it all the way, but instead the door is slammed shut in his face. Not in my house. Well, I think a bit of that disc will remain forever in French Canada as Thibault put his stamp on the occasion. Huge turnover, a chance to tie this, well, to bring this game to universe. They get it down the line. Young, like a pirate just trying to pillage, trying to do something in influence. That means there's someone free. They eventually try to get it to them. It's arcing, it's high, and it's inaccurate always. A bit of panic seemed to overtake Dupont there momentarily.
Looked like there was an injury call and possibly maybe a foul call back here, or hard to see exactly what the conversation is, but definitely some sort of call. That was an interesting throw choice made by the Sherbrooke offense. Looked like he was running out of time, so possibly a contested stall down call, although if it was contested, it is still a turnover. This is again Chung, second time he's been involved in an injury on the field, so we're going to hope that he's okay and is able to continue in what, like we've said a few times now, it is now 12:09 p.m., the hard cap going at 12:10. So if Sherbrooke can score this point, they really can tie this up and make it a universe game situation.
Everything on the line, and they would be going downwind in that universe point situation. You'd have to favor them. There's a lot of float. It gets over the initial defender, but always near the sideline. A miraculous effort from, I believe, Dupont. But he was always just a little bit too far from grace. As now Trucot, will he go for it one more time? Perhaps a flick. He immediately tries to move Thibault to his backhand side so he can get away with it. This one lashed around. Deed early, but collected by Young. That's why you've got to do what? And then this is huge. It's Fong. Oh, just unable to corral it. It was always drifting out of bounds. And of course, the athletic Philippe Galland there throwing himself at it for good measure.
And the horn has gone here, so Sherbrooke in a must-score opportunity now. They have to get this point in to tie it up. Like you said, get that downwind universe point. York, on the other hand, can win this game and move on in this Friday qualifier action bracket by scoring here and have to stop Thibault first.
Well, if they couldn't, the wind certainly has on that rare occasion. And it's all on the line now. Young, if they can put it in, will lead York to the next round and possibly to Division 1 by the end of the day. He's right on the corner of that end zone. An immediate cut down the field by Hun. Can't get free. Trucot does. Young then just spins around and slaps that one away from gravity. Somehow collects it, bringing his team through and breaking the hearts of the Quebec side.
York coming from behind, always down in this game, took their first lead at 9-8 in the second half. Young manages to turn his head over his shoulder, his left shoulder there, and reacted so quickly to make that huge play. And York moving on in this bracket, Sherbrooke looking a little bit upset, defeated here as they will move on to Division 2 this weekend.
I'm sure it's quite disappointing for the team that travelled so far, but they made an excellent account of themselves and looked brilliant going into that wind. But unfortunately, they couldn't quite quieten the lion's roar of York Pride, who progressed forward.
So York will move on to face Ottawa in the next game. The winner of that game will move on to the game to go. So York still needing to get 2 more wins today in order to qualify for Division 1 Nationals this weekend. We'll see later if they can do that. We'll be back at 2:15, of course, with more games. The winner of Carleton and Laval against Ryerson and Winnipeg will be playing at 2:15 in the open division here.
All right, well, I have been Lorcan Murray. I've been joined by the wonderful Rebecca Thompson. Keep it here at ultimatecanada.tv for all your action